Why do you build me up? Buttercup, baby, just to let me down and mess me around, and the worst of all.
What is going on, guys? I am back with another review of a day at an amusement park, and this time I will be discussing this past Saturday at Six Flags Great Adventure, and this was my first ever visit there, and yeah, it was a Six Flags day for sure. And so let's just get right into this. So when EB and I first got into Six Flags Great Adventure, the first thing we did was Joker, and we got some pretty insane flips on it, and it was a good ride on Joker in general, and it was my first ever SNS 40 free spin, and I actually pretty much like these things. And so after Joker, we headed to Harley Quinn Crazy Train, and let me just say, that's a crazy kitty coaster, my favorite possibly, because in the back we got some like ejector airtime and stuff going off of the chain lift hill. Going off of the lift hill, which was crazy. And yeah, so after Harley Quinn Crazy Train, we headed to Batman the Ride, and it was a pretty good ride on it. It was my it was my second ever Batman clone, and it was my first time riding a Batman clone since I went to SeaWorld San Antonio back in 2015. I've now been on 2 Batman clones. I rode my first ever Batman clone back in 2015 at SeaWorld San Antonio before Coaster Plus Music 19 even existed. And now I've ridden another Batman clone at Six Flags Great Adventure with Batman the Ride. And it was my first ever Batman clone that I've earthed on too. I didn't even go earthing on Great White when I went to SeaWorld San Antonio in 2015 because I really wasn't into earthing on rides back then. And I started earthing on rides in 2020, and I wasn't into earthing on rides back in 2015 when I rode Great White at SeaWorld San Antonio. And now it's crazy to say I've ridden another Batman clone since I've started earthing on rides. So this is the first Batman clone that I've earthed on, and it was a really good ride on Batman the Ride, although I didn't like the wait because they were running one train and sending the other one out empty, which I didn't like that move. And after that ride on Batman the Ride, which was my second ever Batman clone. I'm just trying to make sure you guys understand that that was my second ever Batman clone. And so after Batman the Ride, we got the cred on the Dark Knight, and which was an indoor Wild Mouse coaster, which was pretty cool. But I have to say, my favorite indoor coaster like that is Laugh Track because I don't know why. I kind of like Laugh Track better because it's a spinning Wild Mouse coaster. Yeah, and which is crazy. But I pretty much liked The Dark Knight. It was pretty cool themed indoor Wild Mouse. And after The Dark Knight, we headed to Wonder Woman Lasso of Truth, which was both of our first ever Zamperla Giant Discovery. And I'd always wanted to ride one of those. I'd been dying to get on one of those since 2018, and now I finally get on one of them, and it was it's my new favorite frisbee ride now. Like, the wind was like rushing in my ears and all that, and like I just said, it's my new favorite frisbee ride. I love Zamperla Giant Discoveries. They're really good. And after Wonder Woman Lasso of Truth, we headed to our first ever Justice League Dark Ride. And let me tell you guys, it was my favorite dark ride that I've ever been on. In fact, it was both of our favorite dark ride we've ever been on because I was really immersed with the theming and stuff, and yeah, so it was a pretty crazy dark ride. And I got first place too, so I beat EB on that ride. It was my first ever time beating him on a dark ride. Usually he ends up beating me. And yeah, after Justice League, we headed to Cyborg Cyberspin. And boy, we were let down with that one because we were expecting Cyborg to be more insane, but it wasn't as insane as we hoped, because in the beginning even it felt like a swing set. It was flipping at some points of the ride, but like it stopped midway, which sucked. But yeah, anyway, after that disappointing ride on Cyborg Cyberspin, we headed to Nitro, and I had an earthless ride on Nitro because when I was gonna go to the other side to take my shoes and socks off, some lady that was riding with us had already pulled down her clamshell restraint before I could even go there to store my shoes and socks, which really sucked. Yeah, and yeah, so after that earthless ride on Nitro, I still think Nitro's a good B&M hyper coaster. I promise you guys, I'll go earthing on Nitro next time I ride it. And yeah, so after Nitro, we headed to Skull Mountain because Evie still needed to crit on it, and of course I did too. So we both did that, and it was nothing special. Like, yeah, and anyway, after Skull Mountain, we headed to Granny's Kitchen, where we both had fried chicken, and I got a cake for a dessert to go along with my meal, which was really good. And we both got some biscuits, which were pretty decent. And after that eatery at Granny's Kitchen, we headed to Green Lantern, which was an okay B&M stand-up coaster. Like, yeah, I think it was like not that good of a ride, and it's nothing special too, just a B&M stand-up. But at least I could say now I've been on a B&M stand-up, and the wait stunk for it too, because like it was like over an hour wait, and somebody like passed out while we were in line for it. That just shows like Six Flags wasn't like moving fast enough for Green Lantern. And so after Green Lantern, we headed to Superman, and boy, we thought the wait was gonna go faster, but boy, were we wrong. Like, as soon as we got to the switchbacks, the line started moving slower again. It was the second worst wait of the day, the first being Green Lantern. But that wait was worth it for Superman, though, because it is a good B&M flying coaster. And yeah, and it was my first ever B&M flying coaster, and I had a pretty good time on Superman. Yeah. And after Superman Ultimate Flight, we headed to the Golden Kingdom section of the park, where we rode Zumanjaro, and it was my first ever time barefoot 415 feet in the air, because that's how tall Zumanjaro is. And yeah, I think so far Zumanjaro is my favorite drop tower I've ever been on. And while we were going up, we got sort of a duel with King the Ka, but not like dueling as not the duel we were hoping to get. And yeah, after Zumanjaro, we were gonna do King the Ka, but then the ride op started holding up a sign while we were waiting for a locker saying that the ride was temporarily closed, and I was like, oh my god, you gotta be kidding me. Like, this is one of those coasters I've gotta get on. And yeah, and I was mad because I was mad because I was like, come on, I still haven't even ridden King the Ka yet, and like we still have yet to ride it today, and I just, yeah, I was furious at that moment. And so anyway, after that furious moment, we just headed over to Bizarro instead. And let me tell you, Bizarro is my favorite B&M floorless coaster. I'm gonna have my full thoughts on that coaster, like I'm gonna do a video like on my full thoughts on Bizarro later down the road in the future. But let me tell you, before but let me tell you, like, a little of what I'm gonna say in the Bizarro review. It's my favorite B&M floorless coaster. Yeah. For a bit there, Rougarou was my favorite, but Bizarro, like, took that spot for me. And we got a close to night ride on Bizarro, which was really cool. And yeah, so after Bizarro, we headed to Kingda Ka, and it finally opened after we waited in a line outside the queue a little bit for it to open, and then finally Kingda Ka opened up, and then it broke down twice while we were in the station. Like, my gosh, the first time it broke down, we were like mad, and then we just got on it, and then we had to get off, and then it broke down again while they were dispatching the riders that the guests wanted to go again. So yeah, and this wait for Kingda Ka to get fixed really sucked, because I thought we were not gonna have enough time to do stuff after we got off of that ride on Kingda Ka, because it was taking like that long, and the employees were just standing around doing nothing there, and I thought it was going to be like that all the way until park closing. But thank God they started testing Kingda Ka again, and then we were fortunately able to get a backseat night ride on Kingda Ka. And let me tell you, Kingda Ka is insane. Like, its launch is even insaner than Shellraisers. Like, my gosh. And yeah, it was a really good backseat night ride on Kingda Ka, you guys. And yeah, and it was my first time ever on the world's tallest roller coaster. And so now I can finally say I've ridden it. And yeah, so after Kingda Ka, we realized that we still had a half hour before park closing. Even with all that trouble while we were in the station of it, like breaking down and stuff, we still had a half hour before park closing, guys. So with that half hour, we decided to do Sky Screamer, because that was one of the rides, the flats we were like planning to do since it was going to be my first ever Starflyer. And yeah, and it was my first ever Starflyer. We got on it successfully right before park closing. And yeah, I liked Starflyer, and it was a windy ride on Sky Screamer barefoot too. And it felt really nice on my feet. And yeah, and I liked Sky Screamer, but let me just say, I like Windseekers better. They have like greater capacity. And yeah, but I did like Starflyer though. That was a good night ride on it barefoot, with the wind like on my feet and everything. And so that was a good last ride of the night on Sky Screamer. And after we got off of Sky Screamer, that basically concluded our day at Six Flags Great Adventure. It was a Six Flags day, let me say that. And it sucks that Jersey Devil and El Toro were closed, but it gives us an excuse to come back. Like, we're trying to make it back in the fall if Jersey Devil opens by then. But I still want to make it out to Great Adventure in the fall anyway for their Halloween event, Fright Fest, and because I really want to experience that. And plus, we still need the cred on Runaway Mine Train. And yeah, so anyway, yeah, that basically concludes this review of this past Saturday at Six Flags Great Adventure. Reply to me your thoughts on this video, and make sure to go check out my merch store on Bonfire. I have a link in the description. I have short sleeve shirts, long sleeve shirts, coffee mugs, face masks, all the things, so make sure to go check that out. I'll have a link in the description, and I will see you all in the next